Hey there, welcome to Harvest to You. I'm Pastor Marc, and we are really glad you're joining us today. If you'd like to connect with us or learn more, head on over to harvesttoyou.org. If you're near us in Armstrong, Butler, Allegheny, or Westmoreland County, we would love to meet you in person. Join us any Sunday, 9 o'clock or 10:45. We'd be honored to have you. This is part 2 and the final part of a little series on friendship that we started last Sunday with Friend Day. And I want to read for you a verse that we covered last week that's in Proverbs chapter number 13 that says, "He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be," what's the next word? Destroyed. That was a decent effort. Let's try that again. A companion of fools shall be what? Destroyed. We said last week, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Show me who your close friends are, and I'll tell you a lot about who you're becoming. Because when you're with wise people, they'll rub off on you. You'll be more wise. When you're with foolish people, they'll rub off on you, and it won't go well. And we left it last week with a few ingredients to friendship and why it's so important and vital that we have good friends in our life. But I want to speak to perhaps a situation that some of you may find yourself in. Maybe you have friends that are close, but they're not good friends. And you're wondering how you distance yourself from them so that you're no longer a companion of fools. Perhaps you just don't have close friends and you need to make some friends. What do you do in these situations? This is real life for us. Not all of us have a perfect friend portfolio that does adjust from time to time. And I want to speak first on to how do you unfriend somebody? How do you let a friend go if you need to? First of all, do know that there's good press in the Bible about this specific topic, that the scriptures will tell us there are moments where we definitely have to let a friend go, so to speak. Proverbs chapter number 14 tells us to go from the presence of a foolish man when you perceive not in him the lips of knowledge. You perceive that they don't have knowledge, you perceive that they're foolish, then you will want to distance yourself from that person. Proverbs 22 tells us to make no friendship. Do not have a friendship with an angry man. With a furious man, thou shalt not go. Why? Well, you'll learn his ways. Get a snare to your soul. That's going to rub off on you, and you are going to have a huge impediment to your life if you're a friend with someone who's just constantly angry and a rage monster all over the place. 1 Corinthians tells us that we should not be deceived, that evil communications corrupt good manners. The old adage that one bad apple can spoil the bunch. When you're around someone or someones who are not a good influence, then that can have a corrosive effect on your manners and on your character. This is true for young people. Parents, we know this. This is true for those of us that are parents or grandparents, that the right or wrong friends can really make or break your life. I would put it even this way. It's impossible to live the right life when you have the wrong friends. It's about that simple. And sometimes you have a or many wrong friends. This is perhaps especially true if you're new to faith and all of your friends were the people that you just kind of sinned with all the time. This may be especially new if maybe you're not new to faith, but you were away from the faith or backslidden or kind of left church or Jesus for a while, and now your friend group are people who don't really want to love Jesus or know Jesus or please Jesus. This can be true of you. This is true if you're wanting to turn over maybe a new leaf, that you have the idea and the goal of the right life, but you have the wrong friends. And it is vitally important that you at select times in your life redefine some relationships and begin to edit those relationships so that there's not a corrosive effect on your character and on your spiritual walk. Some of you are, with all of your heart, wanting to stay sober and clean, and that has been a struggle for you over the years. But you have some friends who want to stay addicted. That's not a good fit. Some of you are wanting a good marriage, but you have a good friend who she constantly is running men down. She just got through her third divorce, and no men can be trusted, including your husband, and she always sees the wrong things that your husband do and points them out to you, and she's not a good influence on your marriage. Some of you are wanting to be a good husband, but you have a friend who's constantly objectifying women and seeing everything through a sexual filter, and he is not a good influence on you or your life or your marriage. Some of you are wanting to grow spiritually, but you have a friend that they don't want to grow spiritually, and they're not that interested in you growing spiritually, and they're telling you, why are you going to church again? You went last week. Can't you just go once a month? And they're trying to lead you away from that. You have to be aware of this. You have to be willing to edit and redefine those relationships. Now, I know what some of you would be thinking, which would be something to the tune of, but aren't we supposed to love people? Didn't Jesus even love sinners? He was a friend of sinners. Aren't we supposed to go out into the world and be salt and light and be around people who could be a bad influence or want to do wrong things and lead them to Jesus? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely. But there is a massive difference between someone that you're wanting to reach for Jesus and someone who's reaching you for their patterns of negative behavior or their patterns of sin. You having people that you're reaching for Jesus is 2 thumbs up all the way. But when you have a close friend who's having a negative influence on you, sometimes the best way to reach them for Jesus is to distance yourself. I learned this perhaps when I was a high schooler and I was going through lifeguard training. My father directed a summer camp, and as soon as school got out, till the end of July every year, our family lived at camp Monday through Friday. And once I got to be in junior high, I was like pseudo camp staff. I basically like took the trash out to the dumpster and did little errands and things like that. Then when I was in senior high, I joined the camp staff team. You could be, once you were going out of 9th grade into 10th grade, you could join the camp staff team for a small amount of money. And it was comprised of college-age kids down to basically sophomores in high school. We had the kitchen crew, and then we had the cleaning crew, and then we had a camp staff team that ran and officiated games, and we all had our responsibilities. But out of all of the crews, they would ask people every summer, who can swim well? Because we're going to need lifeguards for, it really wasn't a pool, we called it the swimming hole. And it was a man-made pond that they lined. The shallow end actually was concrete. Think of it as a massive swimming hole with slides and water basketball and zip lines and rock climbing walls and the blob, that big air pillow that you jump on, it pops people off, and all these things. And there was a whole crew that we needed to lifeguard. So instead of paying a company to send lifeguards, those of us that could swim well got certified as lifeguards. And I could swim good enough, so lifeguard certification began to happen. And Steve Smith, the YMCA lifeguard instructor, showed up, and we began to learn first aid, and we began to learn technique and how to save someone and all these different things. And I vividly remember 3 different things stick out to me from that season. Every summer I got certified as a lifeguard. One was doing CPR on the little infant doll. That was part of your CPR certification. And I remember thinking, it never even dawned on me that you would have to do CPR differently on like a 1-year-old and going through that process. I remember vividly treading water, and you had to hold your hands out of the water and you had to tread water for what felt like eternity in order to pass the swim test and be a good enough swimmer. I also, though, remember the art of saving someone in the deep end. We had this long red tube that hooked around your chest, almost like a sash or something, and it was attached to you, but it had kind of a leash on it, and you'd jump in and you had to learn to swim with that, and you had to learn the different moves with it and techniques with it and how to get it under someone's back and tow them back to shore. But I remember lifeguard Steve teaching us that 95 to 99% of the time, if someone is actively drowning in the deep end, which did happen from time to time, I remember saving a kid who jumped in. He wore cargo pants, like camo cargo pants, to swim in. Why? I have no idea, but he did. And sure enough, those pockets ballooned full of water, and down he went, and he couldn't get up. So how do you save someone who's actively drowning? And he would tell us, the vast majority of the time, you are going to have to push them away before you can actually save them. You can keep distance and throw them your life preserve. You can try to help them. You can give them commands. But if they're actively drowning, they're panicking, they should not be in that water right now, and you come into close contact with them, they will do one thing and one thing only. They will climb you like a ladder and send you to the bottom. That's all they're going to do. They're going to hold on to you for dear life, and they're going to take you down with them. And we had intense, long practices on the art of getting someone away from you until they wore themselves out, and now they could be receptive to being saved, and they would not drag you to the bottom with them. And it was the art of pushing them and getting away. And he would mimic this with us and be an active drowner and try to drown us, and we had to get away from him. But it was this strange moment where I'm supposed to save you and help you, but I have to get distance between us before I can go save you and help you, and you have to wear yourself out. Some friends are like this, that you're very close, and you want to help them. You want to see them come to faith. You want to see them get on the right path. You want to see them know what you now know of Jesus, but they are dragging you down, and there are times where you have to get distance between you, and at times they have to wear themselves out, hit rock bottom, come to their own conclusions, so that then you can help them. The question, though, is when are these times? Is this just any time a friend is a bad influence or says something wrong, I should just cut them off? No, not at all. So when would I know that this is a friend that I need to create distance between me and them? Well, there's perhaps two instances for sure that you can think of when a friend is pulling you down. You need to get some distance. The first is, do they distract you from God's plan? Are they trying to get you away from God's plan for your life? You know, Jesus had this. Jesus had a really good friend who wanted to distract him from God's plan for his life. It was a guy by the name of Peter. We know him as the Apostle Peter. Perhaps you grew up in a Catholic church that was St. Pete or something like that. That Peter. They were close. And Jesus told Peter and the other disciples, I'm going to go to the cross. I'll die for sins. And Peter told Jesus, no. Let's avoid it. Let's get away from it. Let it not be. And listen to the words of Jesus to his friend who was trying to distract him from the Father's plan for his life. He tells Peter in Matthew 16, get thee behind me, Satan. It's a bad day at the office when your boss calls you Satan. That's not a good day. Get thee behind me, Satan. Thou art an offense unto me. You are offending me. These are strong words. For thou savorest not the things that be of God, but those that be of men. Peter, shut your mouth. You're acting like the devil. It's an offense to me. You are not about God's things right now. You're about man's things. You're about carnal things. Stop it. What is Jesus doing in this moment? He's taking someone who's a friend, a good friend, and this friend's trying to distract him from going to the cross and from the Father's plan for his life, and he says, I'm not having it. Jesus was a good friend. He'd put up with a lot. If you read just the moments with the disciples, they were a piece of work sometimes, but he wasn't putting up with this. I'm not gonna let you distract me from God's plan for my life. I have no room for that. You have to do this at times with people who want to distract you from God's plan. There are also moments where friends just want to tempt you to sin continually. I'm not talking about a one-off. I'm not talking about even sporadically. We all have been a bad friend probably at times and tempted someone else to do wrong or to sin or to mouth off to the teacher or to drink more than they should or whatever it is. We also have been on the receiving end of this, of negative peer pressure. This does happen from time to time. Parents, this will happen with your own children, where your child will be a negative influence on another child. Or perhaps there's a child that's a negative influence on them. If this happens every once in a while, that's to be human, okay? You don't need to cut that friend off and just remove them completely from their life or your life. But when there is a pattern of behavior where they are continually tempting you to do wrong and to do wrong and to do wrong, and they don't want you to do right, that's when you know this is not going well. I need to distance myself from this friend. When they are always after you and they're always in your face or they're always wanting to be mischievous, you need to create some distance. This was the case in Joseph's life when Potiphar's wife tempted him and tempted him and tempted him and tempted him. And finally, she wouldn't take no for an answer, and she grabbed him and said, "Sleep with me." And he takes off his coat and he runs and he gets away from her. Why? Because there was this continual temptation, and his goal was not to evangelize her in that moment. His goal was not to share the great things about his faith. His goal was to get away because he didn't need to be inside of that temptation. So here's the point. You can't have the right life with the wrong friends. And there are some friends that you need to create distance between. Now, listen to me and listen to me carefully. Gracefully, lovingly, but yet truthfully. I cannot pretend to tell you every nook and cranny of every scenario and exactly how you should curate this for your context. But a conversation with a friend that you need to create some distance between would probably look something like breaking up with your boyfriend or girlfriend that you've been dating for a year. Not fun, not over text. Please do yourself a favor and don't do it in an email or a text or a DM. Phone call is okay. Face-to-face is always best. But to have an honest conversation, listen, I know we've been drinking buddies for forever. And I know every Saturday night you want me to stay out with you at the bar till 3 a.m. I know. But I'm on a different path now. I don't want to stay up till 3 a.m. I want to go to church on Sunday morning. I want to go to bed at a normal time. And I don't want to be drunk all the time anymore. I would love for you to come to church with me, but I can't do this anymore. There needs to be an honest conversation. Listen, this is not how that's going anymore. I love you. I'm here for you. I would invite you on this path with me that is a righteous path, but I can't go down that path. Listen, we're not good for each other right now. We can't hang out as much. We can't talk as much. There needs to be an honest conversation to say, I'm not cutting you out of my life. I would love for us to maybe put the paths back together in the future, but we can't do this. We have to redefine this friendship and this relationship. Those are painful, those are hard, but those are necessary at times. Those are necessary at times. So how do you unfriend someone? Gracefully and lovingly, but truthfully. Not to say you're never my friend, but we're not gonna be close like we used to be because this isn't good for me. It's not good for me. On the flip side of that coin, this is what I heard more often this week, was not necessarily bad friends that I need to get away from, although I did hear that for sure. But I heard quite a bit after last Sunday on we're writing down our top 5 friends. Remember that exercise? It was in the bulletin, and we're writing down our top 5 friends that aren't your spouse or your family or your dog or your imaginary friend. I'm writing these down, and I'm stuck at 3. I don't have 3, 4, or 5. There's a tier break. I got a couple good friends, but then I'm like, I got a whole bunch that are like nominal friends. I don't have 5 close friends. I don't have 3 close friends. I don't know if I have 1 close friend. I heard a lot of that over the past week. So how do you make a friend? A whole different category of conversation, but an important one. How do you find a friend? This is something that many Americans are struggling with. I mentioned last week that the American Sociological Review did a study, and they found in 35 years, the average American went from 6 close friends on average to today, the average American has 2 close friends on average, with 25% of the country saying they had 0. There's a lot of reasons for this, but this is a real issue. Great Britain 5 years ago made a new position within their government called the Minister of Loneliness. This is a picture of Stephanie Peacock. She is the most recent Minister of Loneliness. because they found in their society 5 years ago that there were hundreds of thousands of citizens that did not have one close friend, no one they could call when they were down, no one they could vent to, no one to take them to the doctor when they needed a ride. They had nothing. And they found that loneliness was more deadly than smoking 15 cigarettes a day, that it was something that was plaguing their society, that it was killing their citizens, and that they needed to address it. So the minister of loneliness is supposed to come up with systems and ideas and programs in order to connect people to other people, because it's not happening anymore. This is a real life issue for a lot of people who don't have friends. How do you make a friend? Well, let me give you some bad news first. There is a verse, here's the bad news. There's a verse that's been used as a how to make a friend verse that isn't a how to make a friend verse. And I have to at least debunk this so that you know what the Bible does or doesn't say, because many times you'll hear this come up. It's a verse from Proverbs chapter number 18. It's half a verse really. And it says, "He that has friends must show himself friendly." That's the verse. And many times people will take this and say, look, if you want a friend, you got to go be friendly. You got to have a firm handshake. You got to have a good smile. You got to be warm and inviting. And all the extroverts say, yay! And all the introverts say, boo. I don't like that verse. This is not what that verse is saying at all. In the Hebrew, it's literally 3 words: man, friends, hard, or burden, or evil. What it's saying is, if you have friends, already existing friends, then you got to go be a friend. Showing yourself friendly means you're showing up as a friend when you're supposed to. That you are loyal, that you are there, that you're honest. It's saying if you have friends, you better be a friend. And the emphasis is actually on it's a burden and it's hard. And if you have lots of friends, that's going to be really difficult for you to maintain. Some other translations of the Bible will actually say a man of many companions comes to ruin. And it puts the emphasis on that point, that if you have lots of people in your life and you have to be a friend to them, that's going to be a weighty burden to carry with you. So that verse it's not saying go have great soft skills and emotional intelligence and then you'll have friends. Although that is probably true. There is something to be said for being warm and smiling and having good soft skills and being personable and learning how to respond to a question, but then ask a question in return and not just talk about yourself all the time and not dominate the conversation. And all those things are wonderful, but the Bible never really speaks to that specifically. It doesn't give you that. It doesn't give you 10 tips and tricks for how to win friends and influence people. It never says that. What it says more often than not is 2 things. Number 1, it says, here's how to be a good friend. Not here's how to go find a good friend. Why don't you just be a good friend and see if people don't find you? But then it does talk a little bit, or at least it hints at what would comprise a friendship or how you can make a good friend. There's a few examples of this, but perhaps one of the most potent examples of this is in the story of David and Jonathan. David is an Old Testament character, the shepherd boy who killed Goliath, who eventually went on to become king. Jonathan was King Saul, the current king's son. And when they were young bloods, they formed a very, very close friendship. 1 Samuel 18 tells us that the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and they loved each other. That their souls were intertwined. If you have a best friend and you connect, you mesh, you know what this is talking about, where your souls just connect. Souls being knit together speaks to what really makes a friendship. It speaks to common interests and common loves and common passions, that you have something in common with each other and you click. Somehow you just click. You don't know why you click with them and not with them exactly. You just know you click with them. There's something that draws you together. In David and Jonathan's case, if you keep reading their story in 1 Samuel chapter 20, it tells you really what was the glue that held their relationship together, because they tell each other one day when they're leaving and they're not going to see each other for a long time, they know this to be true, and they're crying and they're hugging and they're very emotional. They say this, they say, "Go in peace, for as much as we've sworn both of us in the name of the Lord, saying, the Lord be between me and thee. The Lord be between us and between my seed and your seed forever." What they're saying is, our love is going to be forever. Our friendship is going to be forever because our love of God, the Lord, forms our common ground. We got you and we got me. And between us is this glue that's holding us together, and that's the Lord. There's common ground. Ralph Waldo Emerson, while not a biblical author, a wise person, wrote an essay on friendship. Google it. It's a short read. It's not that long, but it's an unbelievable essay on friendship. And he said that friends are formed basically because they say, "Do you see the same truth as me?" They got something in common. We know this to be true if you just think about relationships and good friendships that you've seen. Find someone that has a really good friend and ask them, how did you two meet and how did you become good friends? What was the genesis of your friendship? You know what they'll tell you almost every time without fail? It was common ground. We were on the same sports team and we practiced together and we traveled together and we spent a lot of time together, and our friendship just took off from that sports team. My sister was friends with his sister. They were best friends, and we met each other through our sisters, and we just became good friends. The families were friends. We were all together one night after work, and we were talking, and they shared this story, and I said, "That happened to me too." Or they shared this book that they read, and I said, "I've read that book." They said, "Really?" They said, "What about this?" "Yeah, I've read that one too." And all of a sudden, the friendship took off because there was common ground. The soul began to be knit together because there was some sort of interest or passion. I say all of this not to be some sort of sociological lesson to you. I say all of this because the Bible at least intimates this, that Christians have with other Christians the raw material for a friendship. When David and Jonathan said, "The Lord be between us and our souls are knit together because God's the glue that holds us together," it is very similar to if you read 1 John chapter 1, where John says that one Christian can automatically have fellowship with another Christian because they share the same heavenly Father and they both have the blood of Jesus cleansing them from sin. What he argues is Christians, we may not see everything the same politically. We may not enjoy the same hobbies or interests. One may be single and one may be married and one may be man and one may be woman. And we have all these different career fields. One's white collar, one's blue collar. One person's idea of a good time is the opera, and another person's idea of a good time is mac and cheese and NASCAR, and there's all these differences. But we have a common denominator in Jesus, and that is enough to begin to form some sort of fellowship or relationship with other people. And I say all this to bring it really, really bottom shelf. If you're a Christian and you feel as though you don't have close companions in your life, the best advice I could give you is to go where you can create relationship with other Christians. It doesn't mean you can't have a great relationship with a non-Christian. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying that you have kind of a starter package already built in, and that they love Jesus and so do you, that you can go be together. The best way to do this in our church is to jump on a team and serve shoulder to shoulder with other Christians and begin to get to know them, or to jump into one of our groups and begin to spend some time, life on life, talking and conversing, and eventually you'll find, I can't guarantee you'll make a best friend in group if you go there for 12 weeks, but I can tell you that the odds are a lot stronger than just coming into the service and being here and saying hi to the person who sits behind you for 30 seconds when we shake hands and then going out the door. There's ways to put yourself in proximity to other people who have the same interest, the Bible, a prayer life, growing in their faith, and that can really be something that's an advantage to a friendship. So the point is this. If there's a lack of good friends in your life that want to influence you for righteousness, then I would plug into those connection points within our church. If you're watching on live stream or you're from out of town, then in your local church. But go find those people and see what becomes of it and see if something takes off. But the best way to get friends, if you read your Bible, is actually not just to try to win a friend. Actually, if you've ever met someone who all they want is a friend, they never have any. You ever met those people? They just want a friend, a best friend, so bad, but they can never make one. And it's kind of a head scratcher at first. And you're like, this is like what drives them. And the reason that they can't find a friend is because that's not how friends are made. Friends are formed off of a common interest and a common bond. So if, let's say I desperately want a friend, and I meet Daniel. Me and Daniel, we got a big age gap between us, but I meet Daniel. And all I want is for Daniel to be my friend. That's all I want. You know what I'll do? I'll laugh at Daniel's stupid joke, even though it wasn't funny. No, that's not true. Daniel's a very funny kid. But I'll laugh. Why? Because I want a friend. I want to think they're funny. I'll ham it up. I won't be truthful with them. And they'll pick up on it. When Daniel says, hey, what do you think about this? I think A, B, and C. And my honest answer in my heart is, I don't care a lick about A, B, or C. I just want you to be my friend. We don't have the common ground. Our souls can't be knit together because we're not on the same page. Unless you can find someone else who desperately wants a friend, that's all they want. Then you can go be desperate friends together. But you have to have common ground, and you have to be a good friend. What are the ingredients of a good friend? Well, we said a couple last week. One was constancy, that you would show up, that you would be there, that you would be loyal when it's inconvenient, when it's hard. If you have friends, you got to show yourself friendly. You got to go be a friend. That's not easy, but it's the task. Transparency, that you would be open with them. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. You would shoot straight with them. You'd correct them at times. But there's more than just constancy and transparency. I want to give you two more this week. Carefulness and helpfulness. I love the idea of carefulness because it speaks to friendship not just being a big thing, but friendship being a million little things. The idea of carefulness is not a right and wrong, righteousness, evil, moral, immoral conversation. It's a wise, unwise conversation. Someone who is uncareful or insensitive in their relationships isn't doing something that is categorically wrong. It's just categorically unhelpful. And Proverbs talks about this and how a friend must be sure to be sensitive and careful. Listen to Proverbs 25. As he that takes away a garment in cold weather. Now that doesn't sound great. Someone, it's cold, and they take the coat off of somebody and now they're colder. Or as vinegar upon niter, which is an explosive reaction. So is he that sings songs to a heavy heart. Is singing a peppy, happy song to a heavy heart wrong, immoral, evil? No, it's just dumb. And it won't help your friendship. They have a heavy heart. They don't need you to get your pom-poms out and to be their cheerleader in that moment. They need you to put your arm around them and hug them and love them and help them in that moment. This is part of the dynamic of being a pastor sometimes, and you get it wrong sometimes, and you hate when you do. But most of the time as a pastor, you're before service, after the service, you're talking with people, you're shaking hands, you're out in the lobby, and you begin to know people. And you have to modulate quickly between this person who just their kid won the national championship in Little League soccer, yesterday, and you're celebrating with them, then this person just lost a family member and they were at the funeral a day ago, and then you're heavy with them, and you have to ping pong between these all the time because you can't just be the same person with everyone. You have to know the topography of their heart, and you have to adjust accordingly. Does that make sense? And a good friend knows how to do this. They have a level of emotional intelligence. They're able to read people. They're able to read the situation. They're able to read the room. They're able to respond accordingly. Some of you have had a potential good friend. You were a friend and you thought, we could be really close. And then you were transparent and you opened up and you were vulnerable. And that friend who you wanted to be a good friend, they just responded the wrong way. They were dismissive to that heaviness, or they belittled it, or they made a joke about it, or whatever they did, it so set your teeth on edge that you thought, I'm never opening up to them again. They didn't get it. And it put a barrier in your relationship. Why? Because they weren't careful and sensitive enough. This is hard to learn, but it's something that you have to learn. This is something that's been, even these last few months here, we've had a number of people in our church, more than normal. We're on a pace of about one every 3 weeks right now of someone becoming a widow or a widower. And we've even seen, I guess, some of this just nationally in our country. Catching all the headlines over the last couple of weeks has been Charlie Kirk's death, and in turn now his widow and his kids without a father. And no matter what side of the aisle someone sits on politically, I would hope that everyone could agree that's a terrible situation and a tragedy for someone to be a young mother and wife and now to be robbed of a husband or the kids of their dad. And there's been, I would say, a lot of prayers even for this family. But for me as a pastor, even more than that family, those that are a part of our church family, Mike Lyon losing Kelly. Charlene, we were talking before the service, lost Tom here just a few weeks back. I think Tom Rinkus is somewhere in the service today, and Pat went home to be with the Lord yesterday. Dave Rumbaugh, and just a couple weeks ago, Linda passed into eternity. These are the last 2 months, widows, widowers within our body. It would be foolish as a pastor to give them a giant hug and say, how you doing? I bet you're having the best day ever. Happy Sunday. That's not my greeting to them on Sundays. It's a hug, but it's more of a, how you doing? Listen, we're praying for you. We love you. Right, there's an emotional sensitivity that you have to have in your relationships or you will erode your friendships. You have to have it. There's another verse in chapter 27 that says, he that blesses his friend with a loud voice, rising early in the morning, it shall be counted a curse to him. You have a friend who's not a morning person, and you're gonna get up and you're gonna be all chipper and happy and loud because it's just the best morning ever. Listen, it'll be counted a curse to you. I see some of you all looking and nudging. I'm hitting a nerve right now. I know I am. I'm not a morning person in the least. Anyone who knows me knows that I get up, but it takes me a while to warm up. It really does. I'm way more of a night owl. But on occasion, growing up with my brothers, I would get up before them, and my younger brother would be laying in bed, not wanting to get out of bed for school, and mom had already come in, and I was feeling spunky, and I would play my mouth trumpet. I get right next to my brother's bed while they're laying there, and just rise and shine, and just be loud and obnoxious. And you know what my brother did every time? Shut up, swinging a pillow at me, getting mad at me. It was a curse to me. He did not enjoy that because there wasn't enough. I mean, I knew what I was doing. I guess I was emotionally aware in that way, but there's not enough emotional sensitivity to do what's helpful for them, right? Is it wrong to be loud and to sing in the morning? Not wrong. It's just foolish if you have a friend who's not a morning person. All of this is speaking to wisdom. Wisdom requires you to be careful and to be sensitive in your friendships, but it also requires you to be helpful. Proverbs 27 says, ointment and perfume, they rejoice the heart. So does the sweetness of a man's friend by hearty counsel. Heartfelt advice. Not just truth-telling. I'm not necessarily talking here about candor. Just heartfelt advice, encouragement, counsel, direction, answering questions, calming them down, reassuring them, just being a friend, just being there to help them. One of the most famous verses on friendship is that iron sharpens iron. So does a man sharpen the countenance of his friend. A good friend is going to sharpen you. He's going to help you. At times even clash with you, but he's going to be there to help and to challenge and to provoke you to good works. This is so vital that in your friendships that you're there to be helpful, that you're there to be careful and sensitive, that you're there to be constant and loyal, that you're there to even be transparent and have corrective measures and faithful wounds at times. All of these come together, all these ingredients come together to make a beautiful thing that we call friendship. It's hard, I'll be honest, it's hard, it's challenging, it's easy. Sometimes you're well-intentioned, but you're accidentally insensitive. Sometimes there's misplaced humor. You were trying to be funny, but it wasn't. All of these things go into our relationships, but the Bible continually advocates for this, to have the right friends in your life, to treat those friendships seriously, and if you have a friend, show yourself friendly, be a good one. And if you have the wrong ones, get some distance and get away from them. I'll end by saying I'm so thankful for the Lord Jesus, who is there, constant. I will never leave you nor forsake you. The last thing Jesus would ever do is lead you away from God's plan for your life. The last thing he would ever do is tempt you to sin. He's careful. You think about who Jesus is, God who became man. God who knows what it's like to be human and now knows that it's scary to be human. Who can comfort us and help us in any situation, because if you've been betrayed, you've been besmirched, you've lost a friend, you've dealt with the pain of death, he's been there, he's done that. He can help you through all of it. He knit his soul to ours. He put himself on the hook of suffering. He knows what it's like to be human. And he's so sensitive and so careful, but he's also so helpful. There's a million ways you could illustrate that, but none greater than him being willing to take our biggest burden, our biggest problem, and solve it for us, our problem of sin. That he would die on a cross for our sins, pay the penalty for that, forgive us of all of those sins. Why? To help us, to help us. So if you're a Christian in the room and you would say, I don't have a lot of good friends, you at least got one. I don't know if anyone wrote Jesus on your friend list last week, but he should be on there. A friend that sticks closer than a brother. Who can find a faithful friend? Well, I'll tell you where you can find one. You can find one in the person of Jesus. If you're a Christian, love him, celebrate him, be close to him. Stay close and clean. If you're not a Christian, be his friend today. I invite you to take him into your heart and into your life. We pray that today's message has been an encouragement to your heart. At Harvest to You, we're passionate about sharing gospel-centered content that brings hope and truth to people's lives. We understand that not everyone watching this is in a position to give, and if that's you, we would genuinely value your prayers for this ministry. But if God has blessed you financially, we'd love to invite you to join our tribe and support what God is doing here. And as a way of saying thanks, I'd love to send you a copy of my new book, The Prayer Jesus Gave. To give and get a copy of this book, just visit harvesttouyorg.org/give. We so appreciate your gift.